Welcome, everyone. I'm Althea Brooks, and I'm Senior Director of Lifetime Learning in the Office of Engagement here at the University of Virginia. I'm pleased you joined us this afternoon for this program on building on legacy, transforming grounds for future generations. We are delighted to have the architect of the university, Alice Raucher, share with us today. I will briefly introduce her shortly. We received many thoughtful questions in advance of this program, which we've shared with the speaker. Ms. Raucher has incorporated responses to these questions into her presentation. Should you have additional questions during the program, please submit them using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. If time does not allow Ms. Raucher to address all questions during today's program, we will follow up with her after the presentation and share her response on our Thoughts from the Lawn blog. You will find resources in the webinar in the chat box, which we will share during the program, throughout the program. Today's talk is being recorded and will be posted in the Lifetime Learning's podcast library in a week or so. Now allow me to briefly introduce our speaker. Alice Raucher is Associate Vice President and Architect for the University of Virginia, where she serves as Chief Steward of the UNESCO World Heritage Site, Thomas Jefferson's Design Legacy. She directs the architecture, planning, and landscape design of the university's grounds. Ms. Raucher oversees a dynamic and expanding campus embedded in the city of Charlottesville and surrounded by Albemarle County. She navigates a complex landscape as a true collaborator and team builder. Before joining UVA, Ms. Raucher served as senior architect and chair of the design steering team at Yale University, and previously held senior roles at leading New York City-based architecture firms. Her notable projects included restorations of Carnegie Hall and Union Theological Seminary. Ms. Raucher is a graduate of Queens College, holds a Master's of Architecture from Syracuse University, and is a recent grad of the UVA's Darden Executive Education Program. Again, thank you for speaking with us today. Alice, the microphone is all yours. Take it away.
Thanks so much, Althea. And thank you all for being here today. I would also like to extend my thanks to the Office of Lifetime Learning in the Office of Engagement and the Alumni Association who invite me back each year to share with you some of our exciting work. But before I dive into the main topic, I'd like to give you a little background on who we are and the basis for our planning efforts. As is stated on this front page of our website, my colleagues and I in the Office of the Architect are committed to the mission of advocating for the highest standards of stewardship for our grounds, regardless of whether it is one of preservation of our historical heritage or the design of new buildings to continue our architectural legacy. You can access a lot of information about the work we do on this site, which is officearchitect.virginia.edu, and I believe that's going to be placed in the chat box for you as well. So although our office comprises diverse professional expertise in real estate and land use planning, strategic space planning and programming, architectural design, historic preservation, and landscape architecture you see on this slide, this is really a much more accurate graphic of how we work together. It is far more common for all of us to have input on every project, given the diversity of expertise and experience in the office. And I can't state enough how fortunate I am to work with such incredibly smart, dedicated, and collaborative individuals, the majority of whom are who's. We're missing a couple of folks in this image, but this photo was taken at a recently completed building, the Contemplative Commons. And if you haven't yet seen it, please make sure to visit and access some of the incredible programs that are offered there. And I want to give a special thanks to the Jefferson Trust for helping us launch a student internship program that enables paid work experience in our office for students in the A School. It's been an incredible opportunity for us to share the work we do on a day-to-day basis with our students. Although we number just about 16 in the office, we work with a vast number of colleagues and constituents across grounds as we do our work. If you're interested in learning more, there's a great deal of research, analysis, and planning that enables the projects you see around grounds. And pictured here are just a few of the reports and studies that are available on our website. And we would not be successful in our work without strong collaborative relationships with our city and county colleagues and our neighboring communities. We participate in each other's planning meetings and have roles on committees that plan together for land use, utility infrastructure, sustainability, housing, and transportation coordination. So one of the most significant planning studies that you'll see on our website is our grounds plan. Most universities have master plans helping to direct physical planning, whereas ours is more of a flexible framework plan, which looks ahead towards an approximately 10-year planning horizon. In this framework plan, we recognize the remarkable legacy of the academical village and other significant places on grounds, and really the founding concept that the original plan equally balanced landscape and architecture. But as you'll see, we've come a long way since this was the extent of grounds. Since the academical village was first completed as a mixed-use community intended to support interdisciplinary collaboration among students, grounds has grown significantly over the decades, characterized by new academic and health system buildings, athletics facilities, and student residential buildings, all to support the dramatic increases in enrollment over the years. And this has resulted in a large footprint of grounds, often growing in an ad hoc fashion and making connectivity challenging across our 1,200 contiguous acres. So while we've had a few master plans over the years, in 2008, we took a different approach, creating a framework plan for campus growth with overarching goals of making grounds more walkable, bikeable, and sustainable. By 2018, we had a new administration and a new strategic plan in place, and it was time for a refresh of the plan. So what you'll see on our website is the 2030 grounds plan. The purpose of this plan, if I had to consolidate all the points written on this slide into one, is that it promotes good stewardship of our physical environment for future generations. The grounds plan proposes infill development to encourage more compact, walkable, bikeable, and public transit accessible future growth through mixed-use redevelopment zones, which are distributed through the 3 precincts of Central, North, and West grounds. Relating to the surrounding context, blue redevelopment zones were deemed appropriate for academic mixed use, while the yellow indicates areas for residential mixed use. This approach is different from previous generations that proposed expansion of the university farther away from central grounds, making access and connectivity more challenging. So in the last few years, we've completed district plans for several of these redevelopment zones with the intention of knitting previously disconnected areas into the fabric of grounds. Since 2016, we've completed 8 master plans, which have allowed us to move forward with development in an informed manner in districts such as Brandon Avenue, Ivy Mountain, Fontaine Research Park, the Athletics District, and of course, the Emmet-Ivy corridor. And all of our planning efforts have an overarching goal of strengthening connectivity, allowing the landscape and the architecture to work as an ensemble, almost like a connective string of landscape spaces. I like to refer to our landscape as the tie that binds, whether it is improving a tree-lined streetscape for pedestrians, strategically locating bus shelters along transit routes, creating resilient working landscapes to handle stormwater, or improving accessibility around grounds. As you know, our beautiful yet challenging landscape is difficult for many to navigate, and so many of our projects are small in scope yet major in impact. So pictured here are a few of our more recent accessibility projects, such as the brick ramps providing access to the lawn terraces, or the Central Grounds Accessibility Project that will allow access from the Central Grounds garage up to the level of the lawn. These projects ensure that our flagship state institution is more physically accessible to all. Our district plans, which propose land use designs and appropriate programmatic uses, allowed us to be prepared to move forward with the design and construction of building projects to meet university needs as they arose. And yes, those needs came fast and furious over the last few years. But it's also important to note that most of those projects, indicated by all the blue dots you see on this slide, are in our planned redevelopment zones. Pictured here are some representative new buildings, such as the Contemplative Commons, the Hospital Bed Tower, the Manning Institute for Biotechnology, and the Memorial to Enslaved Laborers. Renovation projects such as the chapel, Gilmer Hall, and of course, our beautiful rotunda, and renovation projects with new construction, such as Cobb Hall and Shumway Hall, and the splendid Shannon Library. But in the interest of time, I'd like to focus today on one of the district plans we've been working on for the Emmet-Ivy corridor and the capital projects it has enabled. Because I know what you're thinking, what the heck is going on at the Emmet-Ivy corridor? So as some of you may remember, the University of Virginia Foundation first began acquiring parcels in 1983, acquiring the final parcel at the corner of Copley Road in 2019, I believe. There were many studies in the ensuing years because it was always acknowledged how strategic this parcel was. But by 2015, we had the opportunity to contemplate the full 14.5-acre parcel, and it was the full time there was a singular vision for the property. So here's an image from 2015 showing the 14.5-acre site with 9 parcels owned by UVA and the UVA Foundation. The Emmet-Ivy garage, which is outlined in blue, is in the middle of the site, and the commercial properties owned by the foundation are outlined in orange and yellow. So acknowledging that the individual project proposal over the years had not really been successful and that there should be an overall vision for the property, in March of 2015, the Board of Visitors passed a resolution with specific goals for the development study. These goals included enhancing the connection of the area within the overall university while providing an opportunity for interaction with the Charlottesville community, maximizing green space potential for community benefit and aesthetic enhancement of a major university entrance, accommodating current transportation, parking, and stormwater functions on the site while developing each to its maximum potential, optimizing economically viable development and other university support activities within the site development, and providing appropriate screening of the parking garage. So with that charge in mind, in late 2015, and working with Dumont Jenks, campus planners and landscape architects, we began the Ivy Corridor study. And as we've seen when we first started planning the Emmet-Ivy Corridor, it was a low-density commercial area with more curb cuts than sidewalks. The site is bordered by the railroad tracks to the north, commercial property to the west, and our International Residential College and the Lewis Mountain neighborhood to the south. And of course, it was the home of the Cavalier Inn since the mid-1960s. So many thought of the development of this parcel as the ability to provide an entry or a gateway to the university. And while the intersection is indeed important, we saw this parcel as having the ability to provide connection between central grounds and north grounds. While the rotunda and the lawn will always be the heart and soul of the university, this parcel is located at the geographic center of most of the academic activity on grounds. So this site has its inherent challenges and opportunities. This slide describes some of the topographic and hydrological context with which we were working. In this image, the deeper purple color shows the lower elevations and the stream and stormwater management that is part of a larger hydrological study, excuse me, that includes the Dell and the wetlands around JPJ Arena. To be more sustainable, we wanted to minimize our reliance on engineering underground water management, and you can see some of the existing older pipes shown in orange on this image. So this was the Emmet-Ivy site when we began the study, and we knew there were at least 2 amenities on the site. At least we thought of them as amenities. The daylighted stream that was constructed during an earlier stormwater and stream management project that resulted in the beautiful Dell, which is just south on Emmett Street, and the existing parking garage, which would support the new development on the parcel. So for reference, that's the old Cavalier Inn in the lower right of the slide, and you might agree that the best thing about it was its great central location. So the landscape framework plan that was developed in 2016 proposed relocating the daylighted stream to the center of the site, enabling city block-sized parcels to face both the street and the interior green and screen the existing parking garage. The linear green is a working landscape collecting stormwater for the district, with the corner pond providing much-needed stormwater storage to prevent any future flooding of Emmett Street. The program for what would get built on the site has been equally well considered. In 2018, President Ryan formed the Emmet-Ivy task force to look at programmatic needs for the site with the goal, I'll quote here, of creating a welcoming and inviting place where local residents, visitors, and the university community interact. The task force proposed the three nexuses of creativity and experimental arts, democracy, and discovery, as shown by the pink, orange, and blue blocks on this diagram. So the yellow is meant to identify all the shared public space, not only in the open green, but within each building. And the site on the southwest side of the garage is all yellow, identifying the site for a hotel and conference center, one that was proposed to serve the broader university and surrounding community. So the first three parcels to near completion are the School of Data Science in the foreground, the parcel towards the center of the site for the Virginia Guest House, and the parcel at the end of the linear green for the Karsh Institute of Democracy. Currently under construction is a student housing project to the west of the Karsh Institute, and we're in the process of designing a new School of Data Science entrepreneurship building. And as you may know, we received a generous gift from Tessa Ader in support of a new performing arts center, which, if all goes as hoped, will be in those white blocks to the right on this slide. Our effort in the design of this district has been to reinforce the tenets of the Emmet-Ivy Task Force by locating public-facing program and activity within the buildings, as you can see in this sort of X-ray view, along the important exterior civic spaces of the amphitheater, the green, and the promenade. I love to show the vision for the site juxtaposed against a recent drone photo showing the great progress the construction teams are making. As you know, the School of Data Science opened in 2024. The Virginia Guest House has just finished construction, and the Karsh Institute will be open this fall. So with all that as background, I'd like to take you on a little bit of a visual tour to explain the individual projects in a little more detail. So the School of Data Science, designed by Hopkins Architects with VMDO, is a cutting-edge facility at the forefront of the transdisciplinary field of data science. As Dean Phil Bourne stated at the building's opening, data science has a spectacular new home. The building before you is much more than just a new physical structure. It was designed to be a testament of everything we believe in: openness, transparency, and innovation, among other things. So following the tenets of the Emmet-Ivy Task Force, the building has public-facing space on the ground floor, appropriately facing the beautiful stone amphitheater that you can see in the foreground on this image. The hub was purposefully located at the corner of the building to allow the events and life of the School of Data Science to be on full display and welcome the broader community into the building. And it's really just a great place for gathering and hosting many events like this Futures initiative from last fall. This long section through the building is really an interior landscape, if you will, with the central stair connecting all the different spaces in the building, from the entry plaza and the lobby at the ground floor at the right, up through the classrooms, offices, meeting rooms, up to the terrace with its dramatic views of grounds from under the portico. The dean's mantra is that they are a school without walls, which is apt as data science pervades all fields and disciplines. And the project was designed specifically to encourage chance encounters and support collaboration. So here you can see the open atrium and the interactive data sculpture, which extends from the lobby all the way up to the fourth floor. Of course, the building has state-of-the-art active learning classrooms, and the terrace at the top floor of the building with views over the pond and back towards the Rotunda and Shannon Library is quickly becoming one of the best places to meet on grounds. So now we're back at the ground level and moving from the School of Data Science along the main 20-foot wide pedestrian promenade with the ground floor of the Virginia Guest House, the hotel and conference center, to our right. The ground floor, following the design guidelines of the corridor, is very transparent to encourage pedestrian engagement. There's a parallel interior promenade that connects to the hotel's lower entry, the counter cafe, and the living room, with the upper lobby of the hotel that you can see under the canopy in the distance. The counter cafe and the living room of the hotel are meant to be spaces where students, visitors, and hotel guests all feel comfortable to gather, have coffee, study, read, and enjoy the landscape and the activity of the corridor. And we've been working with the great team from Ten Burke Architects in the development of this project and are very excited about the life that the Virginia Guest House will bring to this district, not to mention the excitement over the rooftop bar, aptly named the Perch, that you can see above the entry. And the views from the Perch will be, I shouldn't say will be, it's open now, are spectacular as shown in this rendering. So even at this level, the relationship to the surrounding landscape is remarkable. The Virginia Guest House is now officially welcoming guests, so please make sure to visit. So thanks to our generous donors, we've been incredibly fortunate to have received a number of gifts in the last few years, not only for the School of Data Science and now its expansion, but for the Karsh Institute of Democracy and the Future Center for the Arts. So this rendering shows the site plan for these buildings, framing the central landscape and pond, with the Karsh Institute of Democracy located at the head of the linear green. So working with our design architects, Haller and Yoon, the architects of our amazing memorial to enslaved laborers, we began to think about the meaning of the program for the Karsh Institute of Democracy and the form the building might take, given our own founding ideals and what we project for our future. I think there's a wonderful parallel with the fact that the Rotunda was completed in 1826 and the Karsh Institute will be completed in 2026. So clearly we wanted a design that speaks to democratic ideals, promotes healthy debate and discourse far into the future. We also considered how the Institute of Democracy should present itself within the context of the Emmet-Ivy corridor, our overall grounds, and Jeffersonian ideology. Not only are we considering the rotunda and pavilions on the lawn, but we looked at John Russell Pope's Jefferson Memorial, which is the top image on this slide, with a statue of Thomas Jefferson framed by the white columns of the portico, and the warm white tone of Jefferson's Virginia State Capitol, which is the image at the bottom of the slide. We also considered how one reads the lawn as a layer of red brick behind a screen of warm white columns in the foreground. We considered that the language of the architecture of the pavilions is not consistent, that there's an evolution of Jefferson's designs of pavilions 9 and 10 from pavilions 1 and 2, for instance. So in this sense, his designs could be understood to be looking towards the future and towards the open landscape. So with this in mind, we explored many ways of how the material palette could help ground the building to the place. As one reads the rotunda as a brick drum behind a facade of white columns and under a white dome, we're proposing that the drum of the auditorium of the Karsh Institute is read as a warm red figure behind the screen of the white column facade. We proposed that the Karsh Institute, sitting at the head of the linear green, needs to be visually significant not only close up, but from a distance, not unlike how the rotunda commands the view from the lawn. A very different landscape from the lawn, to be sure, but one that still provides a sense of place. So at this point, I'd like to share a 5-minute video that was created for the groundbreaking of the Karsh Institute that tells the inspiring story of the ideals of the building. Just a note, you might want to turn up the volume on your computer if you can't hear the sound well enough.
The University of Virginia is deeply embedded in the nation's founding democratic ideas and principles. The idea that citizens should be engaged and informed is absolutely essential to that. And that's what makes the University of Virginia the perfect place for the Karsh Institute of Democracy building.
So what this building will offer to us is both a focal point and a place to engage, to be collaborative, to meet with others, to listen to others who disagree with us, to come together really at the heart of UVA.
Democracy is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And this physical place will be an opportunity to practice all of that.
There's so much here to build off of. I think our challenge was to be authentic to this place while also finding a contemporary expression for democracy at this time.
It was important to have echoes of the lawn without being, specific about, the stylistic elements, right? And I think the building really achieved that.
And then we sketched this idea that it might have doors on all four sides, that it's not got a front and a back, but every face is a front. And so that sort of set up this sort of relationship between the sort of solid cornerstones and the kind of spaces in between. Even the upper volume is designed as a series of discrete volumes that have gaps in between, so it doesn't feel tight and hermetic and imposing, but something much more porous and open.
The rotunda served as the university's library, and around it, students and faculty members lived together and engaged in important ideas of the day. That concept, that idea, is one that continues into the 21st century. And we believe the Karsh Institute building is a reflection of that and will help us build a modern and thriving democracy.
Our mission at the Batten School of Leadership and Public Policy is to develop leaders and to create knowledge to solve our most pressing problems in a diverse and divided world.
There are certain higher values that universities, especially public universities, should protect. Foremost among them are democracy and free speech, and the Karsh Institute will support both.
Democracy is important because it upholds the basic human rights and freedoms of the people. We need a nonpartisan institute like the Karsh Institute to understand and strengthen democratic values to create a better future for everyone.
When you walk into the building, I hope students are inspired by the art on the walls that reminds them of the struggles people have faced to uphold their democracy and use their voice. I hope they hear interesting lecture series that open their eyes to all the different intersects of democracy in all of the different sectors of our world.
The creation of these spaces has been an intense collaboration of world-class architects, engineers, and specialty contractors working closely with the university leaders, faculty, students, alumni, and the community to ensure that this place supports the values, hopes, and vision of the Karsh Institute of Democracy now and into the future.
There are all these people coming together in concert in a way that's extremely thoughtful, that is happening specifically at this place, specifically at this moment in time, born out of necessity, but driven by hope, driven by humor and excitement, and a true desire just to do good for people around us.
It's not about audience and speaker, it's about participants. So turning passive audience members into active participants. And I think the intimacy of the room and the geometry of the room sort of creates that sense of participation and intimacy.
I think about the conversations that are going to happen in the hallways that will change students' ways of thinking. I see that staircase and I think about the elegant simplicity of those things coming together in concert with one another in a way that just makes so much sense.
I think it's an important exclamation point that UVA is making and will really set us apart from other places that might have institutes of democracy. This will be special.
So I hope you enjoyed that video. Now, here's a view back to reality. So here's an overall aerial photo showing the progress of our construction on the Karsh Institute with the hotel's entry to the right. The site for our student housing is just to the north and west of the Karsh Institute, which I'll show you in a little more detail in the next few slides. I also just want to point out that the construction project across Copley Road, which is labeled Bloom on Ivy in this slide, is a new student housing project by a private developer, not the university's project. And in this view, you can also see the new North Grounds parking garage at the upper right of the slide, which will provide approximately 1,100 new parking spaces in the athletics district. So I know there's a lot of construction traffic at the moment, but in a little over a year from now, everything should calm down with the completion of the buildings and additional parking that will be available. So this rendering shows more clearly our new student housing buildings that are north and west of the Karsh Institute. The project is the first move towards achieving the goal of housing all second years on grounds. With 780 beds on this site, 350 new beds under construction at Darden, and 2 large private developments, one across Copley Road that you just see to the left on this image, and the other at the intersection of Emmett Street and Jefferson Park Avenue. There will be approximately 3,000 new beds coming online in 2027. So we are planning to see what impact this will have on the market before contemplating any new on-grounds housing. So with the addition of student housing on the Emmet-Ivy corridor, this district really becomes a living, learning community with 24/7 activity with residences, dining, and academic buildings, much like Brandon Avenue and, of course, like the Lawn. The communal linear green of the master plan continues to this upper area on the site, and the residential buildings themselves are focused around smaller landscape courtyards. The buildings have also been scaled in consideration of the surrounding context, with the 5- and 6-story wings continuing the height of the guest house and the Karsh Institute, and take into consideration the scale of the adjacent residential neighborhood. This rendering is looking northeast at the intersection of Copley and Ivy Roads, where you can see the 6-story building along Copley to the left and the 5-story wing along Ivy Road to the right. Elkis Manfredi Architects, the team that successfully designed Gaston and Ramazani houses on Brandon Avenue, have similarly designed these buildings, where the ground floor along Copley and Ivy maximize transparency to provide not only direct access to retail space at the corner, but also eyes on the street, if you will, for safety. The project will continue the wide tree-lined sidewalks that have made a huge difference along Ivy Road, and we're also widening the sidewalk along Copley and over the bridge, knowing how much foot traffic goes over the bridge for athletics events. So this view is looking west at the interior shared lawn towards the residential dining hall and social hub, which is beyond the portico. The project provides stair and elevator access to Copley Road that you can see on either side of the dining pavilion. The 20-foot wide promenade on the left provides connectivity all the way from Emmett Street through to Copley Road. The presence of students in this district and the mix of academic, residential, dining, cultural, and hospitality uses, not to mention the athletics programs, which are on the other side of the tracks, will make the Emmet-Ivy corridor an active, vibrant, and really stimulating district of the university. So with all these projects now into construction, our attention is focused on the Center for the Arts, on which we've been collaborating with a renowned team of Diamond Schmidt architects who completed David Geffen Hall at Lincoln Center, Annabelle Seldorf, the architect who just completed the renovation of the Frick Collection in New York City, and our Charlottesville-based BMDO architects. The building will be home to the Tessa and Richard Ada Performing Arts Center, the Fralin Art Museum, the Kluge-Ruhe Gallery, and the Department of Music. So while an important site for an important program, the building will also be part of an ensemble that you've been seeing, an ensemble of buildings that are intended to create a collective sense of community, offering shared resources and building on our tradition of buildings and mixed uses in our harmonious relationship with the landscape. So this long section through the site, looking north, puts all the buildings on the Emmet-Ivy corridor in context with each other. The section begins at the left of the slide with the 11-story private development at the corner of Copley and Ivy Roads, then moves to the right with our student housing, then the Karsh Institute Democracy, the Virginia Guest House, the proposed Center for the Arts, and the proposed private hotel development across Emmett Street before ending at our Culberth Theater, which is across Cars Hill Field. The facade of the Center for the Arts is designed to tie into the horizontal datums created by the Karsh Institute and the Virginia Guest House, with the brick mass of the center stepping down towards Emmett Street and the large window of the Performing Arts Center centered on the pond and the open landscape. So as you've seen before, all the buildings on the Emmet-Ivy corridor have been designed with a transparent, welcoming ground floor to connect interior public spaces with the exterior pedestrian promenade to create a safe, active district. So as shown in yellow on this X-ray illustration again, the Center for the Arts will have an internal promenade on the ground floor that builds on these design guidelines and which will connect with the public-facing program in the School of Data Science, the Welcome Center and Living Room of the hotel, and the lobby of the Karsh Institute. That shared connection is again shown in yellow on this ground floor plan of the Center for the Arts and provides connected lobbies for the Performing Arts Center, the music department, and the combined UVA art museums. You can also see that although the public spaces will be connected, each program will be able to have an identifiable entry. A great aspect of this site is the adjacent parking garage, and there will be direct access to the center from the garage. You can see that in the middle of this image of this diagram. That shared circulation happens horizontally in plan, but also vertically in section through the building. It's one of the reasons why this large building is actually very efficient in its ability to share program spaces as well as circulation. The section of the building, which is taken lengthwise, shows how the programs are arranged to take advantage of room adjacencies. This section also begins to show the logic of the facade that you'll soon see. As we saw in the ground floor plan, while the collaborators efficiently share space in the Center for the Arts, it was important that each collaborator have a specific identity. So here's that same building section, this time without the color coding and with some of the primary program spaces noted. These adjacencies were carefully considered. So, for example, you can see how the Performance Lab, which is a flexible theater space that will be used by all three programs, is located in the middle of the building. Also take note of the recital hall, the rehearsal room, and the dance studio, which are on the east side of the building to the right on this slide. These programs will activate the public facade facing Emmett Street. So the Performing Arts Center is prominent in this view, with a large window putting the activity of the Center for the Arts on full display, centered on the landscape amphitheater around the pond. So to the left, you can see the glass-fronted link that not only provides an identifiable entrance for the college's music department, but importantly provides the break between the masses of the Performing Arts Center on the right and the art museums on the left. So now moving inside the building, the lobby of the Performing Arts Center will provide an elegant space for pre-concert events, but also has been designed to be a social or study space for students when the main hall is not in use. So now we're moving west outside the building. You can see how that transparent pedestrian promenade at the ground floor level connects all the program in the building. The glass link, which is in the middle of the slide, not only provides that identifiable entry for the music department, but locks the building into the broader site by aligning with the plaza, which is in front of the School of Data Science, and the bridge that connects the two across the green. So inside the Music Commons, the interior promenade will not only connect the program in the building, but will also connect the interior activity of the building to the exterior landscape and public realm. So we've worked with broad stakeholder groups over the years composed of students, faculty, staff, and administrators, in addition to our world-class consultants, to make sure the design of specialized spaces such as this music class lab provides the required functionality for the program. So now we're back outside again, moving to the west of the building. You can see the prominent illuminated entry to the museums from Raucher Road, which leads to the entry to the garage. This entry is not only accessible from the promenade, but there's also a vehicular drop-off in the plaza between the guest house and the Center for the Arts. The illuminated signage that you see in this image will be able to display the museum's names, as well as highlight art exhibitions or display commissioned digital artwork. And we're still in the early stages of designing the interiors of the center, but the architects have started imagining an impactful lobby for the art museums, perhaps commissioning an artwork for the large wall that can be viewed from the exterior of the building, once again connecting inside and outside. And the architects are starting to consider all the details of the design of the galleries for the Fralin and the Kluge-Ruhe. It's wonderful to think of gallery spaces worthy of the Fralin Museum and the Kluge-Ruhe's collection. This facility will be especially transformational for the Kluge-Ruhe. Back outside again, this view shows the building as a prominent, identifiable marker of the Center for the Arts for those entering grounds from the north. It also shows the city's smart-scale pedestrian improvements along Emmett Street and the proposed pedestrian tunnel that you can see through the railroad embankment that will hopefully be under construction within the year. So there's been a lot of very close collaboration between the university, the city, and the Virginia Department of Transportation. So this view shows the continuation of the transparency of the lobby along Emmett Street and the large corner window of the rehearsal room. There'll also be a bus drop-off and a ramp up to the pedestrian promenade, which is located at the stone wall along the sidewalk in this view. The rehearsal room facing Emmett Street will be used by students and performance artists and can also be set up for celebratory events and dinners. So now this is a view from across arts grounds, which shows the life and civic presence the Center for Arts will bring to this prominent location. I love the possible visual connection between the activity of the rehearsal room on the corner and the frequent marching band practices on Cars Hill Field, which is directly across Emmett Street. I know many of you will ask whether there's the possibility of a pedestrian bridge across Emmett Street, and although yet unfunded, there is an opportunity to connect arts grounds and the Culbreth Garage to an upper public lobby in the Center for the Arts to the right in this image. So please now keep this view in mind as we move to the next slide, which is a cross-section through the main hall of the Performing Arts Center, showing its relationship to the overall district and the layering of the facade from the public realm of the amphitheater around the pond to the left, then to the pedestrian promenade, which is in front of the building, through to the glass-fronted lobbies, and finally to the main hall. The main hall, which has a 1,200 seat capacity, will be adaptive to various formats, such as a performance by the university singers or the Charlottesville Symphony, or a venue for our UVA dance performances, or the Charlottesville Opera or Ballet. Or for UVA theater productions, the Virginia Theater Festival, or touring Broadway shows. Or the showing of films, perfect for the annual Virginia Film Festival. So although we've received incredibly generous philanthropy, the future of this project is dependent upon state funding. So please keep your fingers crossed this spring as we await the governor's budget. The team has been busy at work furthering the development of the design, and if we are fortunate enough to receive state funding, we hope to be ready for performances in early 2030. I realize that there are a lot of big ifs in that statement, but we've never been closer in this decades-long endeavor. So we're hopeful because it's not hard to imagine an exciting opening night performance for the university and the broader community at the Tessa and Richard Ader Performing Arts Center, and how amazing that would be for the university and the broader community. So on that note, pun intended, I'll stop there. Thank you so much for your time. As Althea mentioned, thank you also for providing questions in advance of this webinar. And so given that so many questions were similar in nature, I thought I'd take a little time to answer the ones that were asked most frequently, such as, How do you reconcile the architectural history of the academical village with modern buildings? Has UVA's new buildings policy abandoned more traditional styles? So in answer, when asked this question, I point out that both Shannon Library and Shumway Hall are two of our newest buildings and are neoclassical in their design. So the answer is that we consider context and program as buildings are designed. But since everyone cares deeply about this topic, I'd like to go into a little more detail about this. So this brief tour through buildings on grounds shows that not long after the academical village was completed in 1828, the infirmary, what we now know as Varsity Hall, was built in 1858 in a stripped-down Italianate style, which was a modern style at that time. Even more than the exterior, the systems in the infirmary were state-of-the-art, appropriate for its function. Soon after that, Brooks Hall was completed in 1876 in a romantic Second Empire style with exotic animal heads as keystones above the windows. The design and construction of the chapel followed in 1890 in a collegiate Gothic style many thought appropriate for an ecclesiastical building. Then followed Cabell, Koch, and Rouse Halls in 1896 in McKim Mead White's favorite Beaux-Arts style, interestingly using Greek precedents rather than Jefferson's Roman choices. So President Darden refocused student activity back on the lawn with New Cabell Hall in 1952 in a stripped-down Georgian style, and President Shannon grew the sciences at UVA with buildings such as Gilmer Chemistry, Physics, and Mechanical Engineering in contemporary architectural styles. In fact, most of the buildings on the south side of McCormick Road were constructed during a very busy 7-year period. We obviously know what that's like. U-Hall, a purpose-built structure, put the basketball program on the map as the house that Ralph built, and Arts Grounds was firmly established with Campbell Hall, the Fisk-Kimball Library, and the Culber Theater, all during the tenure of President Shannon. So through it all, I think it's important to remember that Jefferson, in using precedents from ancient Rome and then modern France for pavilions 9 and 10, was interested in establishing a certain worldliness in the architecture of his new college. He believed that in the Vitruvian principles of architecture as firmness, commodity, and delight. And I believe these tenets continue today in what we consider the essential characteristics of a UVA building. So specifically, UVA strives to be worldly, addressing both local and international audiences. UVA buildings articulate their role in its educational mission through siting, scale, and design. Whether in brick, stone, concrete, or steel, UVA buildings manifest solidity. UVA buildings use the highest level of craftsmanship available. UVA buildings are appropriately sized, and UVA buildings are integrated deliberately into the existing landscape and streetscape. Another important document that you'll find on our website is the Historic Preservation Framework Plan that we first developed in 2007, updated first in 2014 and most recently last year. And when it was established, the plan had two primary goals. One, to recognize that historic meant more than the Jefferson buildings and grounds. So it designated the original buildings and landscape as fundamental, then focused on the post-Jefferson buildings and landscapes that were more than 40 years old. And two, to create a tool that informed planning for maintenance, renovation and renewal, and demolition. So to guide the particular question of context, the plan includes a design influence map that applies to new construction projects. Zone 1, which is the darker purple on the map, includes the UNESCO World Heritage Site, as well as the Virginia and National Historic Register districts. In this area, new buildings must be designed consistent with the architectural expression of the academical village. Zone 2, the lighter purple color, defines the historic ground zone, and new projects will present a carefully designed response to Zone 1, but will allow for less traditional massing and detail. So in summary, building closer to the lawn requires more traditional expression, while distance from it allows more contemporary expressions that nevertheless exhibit the essential characteristics that make them legible as UVA buildings. So the second most asked question is, what are we doing to address traffic congestion along Ivy Road? How will additional parking pressures from new buildings be handled? And I wanted to begin to answer that question with images of what Emmett Street and Ivy Road looked like before we began construction in 2018 or so. The previous businesses on Ivy Road included the Cavalier Inn, as previously mentioned, as well as the Villa Restaurant, Shenanigans, which was a popular toy store, the Dynamics Building, which was a 4-story office building, Carrie's Camera, Wings Over Charlottesville, 7-Eleven, the University Forum Apartments, and the BB&T Bank. So there was obviously a lot of commercial traffic and many curb cuts accessing the site. The existing Emmet-Ivy garage, which has a little over 1,200 parking spaces, was used primarily for commuters, many of them associated with the health system. Those commuters have now been relocated to the new 1,300 space garage in the Fontaine Research Park, which is the image in the lower middle of this slide. The new 1,100 or so space North Grounds garage to the right of that image will be open this fall and will help with athletic events and commuter parking. It will also be a transit hub for our UTS buses and have a student-run bicycle repair shop. So all this to say that the traffic congestion that is currently on Ivy Road is largely due to the construction projects, which, although they seem endless, are relatively short-term. And the Emmet-Ivy garage is now freed up to house the parking demands of the hotel, the academic buildings, and the future Center for the Arts. And the third most asked question is, will there be a time in the near future that does not include building on or near grounds? So it's difficult to see into the future, and when I consulted the Magic 8 Ball with that question, this was the answer I received. But seriously, while we see the capital program slowing down in the next few years, it's hard to imagine a time when there isn't any building or construction on grounds. The construction of the Center for the Arts, for instance, will require interior renovation at the Bailey Building when the Fralin Museum moves out. Similarly, if the music department moves out of Old Cabell Hall, that would be an incredible opportunity for a much-needed renovation of that historic building. And as always, though, we will continue to collaborate with community stakeholders as we do our work. So thanks again for your time today, and we hope to see you on ground soon.
Hi, Alice. That was fantastic. You always give such an informative a talk to us, and you bring such great visuals. Thank you for sharing so much with us today. We're just delighted. This was a fascinating glimpse at you and your team's important and hard work. So thank you so very, very much.
We love sharing our work. Thank you, Althea.
All right. Audience, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate your time and your interest in this program. We invite you to take advantage of several upcoming Lifetime Learning programs, including Rethinking Affordable Housing, Codes, Design, and Community. And that's on May 12th. Someone in the comment in our Q&A asked a question about affordable housing, so you should tune into that program. Visit our website at engagement.virginia.edu/learn. While you're there, check out our Thoughts from the Lawn blogs and other online resources. So again, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Thank you, Alice. Everyone, be well.